Over the past few weeks, a quiet shift inside Canada's immigration system has begun to ripple across Europe. Switzerland, Germany, France, Sweden, Italy, Portugal, and dozens of other countries appeared in the same headlines, not because cooperation failed, but because Canada pressed pause on a pathway many entrepreneurs relied on. The language sounded serious. Barriers, delays, uncertainty. But what actually changed and why now? Was Canada pulling back from its closest partners, or was something deeper happening beneath the surface? This was not a rejection. It was a strategic reset. Welcome to GeoCapitalist. Today's video examines why Canada quietly pressed pause on Europe and what comes next. This is not a story about strained alliances or closed doors. It is about how Canada manages success, controls scale, and redesigns entry at a time when demand has outpaced structure. To understand this moment, we need to look beyond the headlines and into the strategy behind the pause. Canada did not impose a travel restriction on Europe, nor did it single out European countries for special treatment. What Canada paused was the intake of new applications under its startup visa program, a niche immigration pathway designed to attract entrepreneurs with innovative business proposals. Over time, that program became a victim of its own success. Application volumes grew faster than processing capacity. Backlogs stretched into years, and the original intent of attracting scalable, high-impact businesses began to blur. By the end of 2025, Canadian authorities were facing a system where approval delays undermined credibility, oversight became harder to enforce, and resources were spread too thin. The pause, which took effect at the start of 2026, was designed to stop new inflows temporarily while existing cases are cleared and a redesigned framework is prepared. This affects applicants from all regions equally, but Europe appears prominently in coverage because European founders have been among the most active users of the program. In other words, the pause reflects scale and system pressure, not politics, and not a change in Canada's relationship with its closest partners. Europe's reaction to this pause is best understood through its depth of engagement with Canada, rather than through any sense of exclusion. For more than a decade, Canadian immigration pathways, especially the startup visa, have been particularly attractive to European entrepreneurs because they combined political stability, access to North American markets, strong legal protections, and a relatively predictable route to permanent residency. Founders from countries like Germany, France, Sweden, Switzerland, and Portugal were not seeking refuge or short-term mobility. They were seeking long-term integration into Canada's innovation economy. As application volumes grew, European participation grew with them, which is why European countries now feature so prominently in media coverage. When the pause was announced, it disrupted plans that were already in motion, business timelines that had been mapped out, and investment structures that assumed continuity. That disruption naturally generated attention. However, this reaction should not be mistaken for diplomatic friction. European governments have not issued formal complaints, trade ties remain intact, and cooperation across energy, defense, research, and infrastructure continues uninterrupted. The concern expressed across Europe is practical, not political. It reflects uncertainty around timing, clarity, and transition rather than a belief that Canada is closing itself off. In many ways, the visibility of Europe in this story is a signal of how deeply embedded European talent and capital already are within Canada's economic planning, not a sign of strain between partners. The timing of this pause is not accidental. Canada is making this adjustment at a moment when multiple pressures are converging across housing, infrastructure, public services, and immigration processing capacity. Over the past several years, demand for entry into Canada has accelerated faster than the systems designed to manage it. While high immigration has supported growth, it has also exposed structural bottlenecks that cannot be solved simply by approving more applications. In the case of the startup visa, delays stretched so long that the program began to undermine its own purpose. Entrepreneurs cannot build companies effectively while waiting years for status clarity. Investors lose confidence in timelines, and regulators struggle to maintain consistent oversight. By pressing pause now, Canada is choosing to regain control before credibility erodes further. This is a signal of institutional discipline rather than retreat. Canadian policymakers are effectively saying that growth must be matched by capacity and ambition must be supported by execution. The pause creates breathing room to redesign intake thresholds, tighten qualification standards, and align entrepreneurial immigration more closely with national economic priorities. It also sends a broader message. Canada is no longer optimizing for volume alone, but for outcomes. In a global environment where competition for talent is intensifying, this move reflects a shift toward precision, predictability, and long-term sustainability rather than short-term inflows. The most important clarification at this stage is what this pause is not. It is not a signal of retreat from Europe, and it is not a cooling of strategic alignment. Canada's economic relationship with Europe remains one of its strongest pillars, spanning trade agreements, energy cooperation, industrial supply chains, and defense coordination. If this were a political shift, where are the secondary signals? Trade negotiations have not stalled. Joint energy projects with countries like Germany and Sweden continue to advance. Research collaboration, defense procurement, and critical minerals coordination remain intact. So why would Canada jeopardize those relationships over a single immigration stream? The answer is that it would not. The pause exists in isolation from diplomacy because it addresses a technical bottleneck rather than a geopolitical one. What would actually damage Canada's credibility with partners would be allowing a program to drift into dysfunction, where promises are made but timelines collapse. Would European founders benefit from entering a system where processing takes years and outcomes are uncertain? Would Canadian cities benefit from admitting entrepreneurs without the capacity to support them? By acting early, Canada avoids those outcomes. This reframes the pause as a form of stewardship. Canada is protecting the integrity of its system so that future cooperation remains reliable rather than symbolic. Stability, not speed, is what long-term partners value most. The pause also raises a forward-looking question that matters far more than the temporary disruption. What replaces the startup visa in its current form? Canadian authorities have already signaled that this is not an ending, but a transition. A redesigned entrepreneur pathway is expected later in 2026, one that reflects lessons learned from the last decade. What happens when intake is scaled to match processing capacity? What happens when qualification standards focus more narrowly on execution, capital readiness, and sector alignment? The likely outcome is a smaller, more selective program with faster decisions and clearer expectations. For serious founders, this could be an improvement rather than a setback. Long delays erode momentum, discourage investors, and create uncertainty that no business can afford. A more disciplined system restores trust on both sides of the application. From Canada's perspective, this also allows entrepreneurial immigration to align more closely with national priorities such as advanced manufacturing, clean energy, artificial intelligence, and critical infrastructure. The pause is the reset point that makes that alignment possible. Rather than managing an open-ended queue, Canada can design a pathway that delivers measurable economic outcomes. In that sense, the question is not whether Canada is becoming more restrictive, but whether it is becoming more intentional. This reset inevitably creates winners and losers, but not in the way the headlines suggest. Who feels the pressure first? Speculative applicants whose plans existed mostly on paper, intermediaries who relied on volume rather than quality, and investors betting on speed rather than substance. For them, uncertainty is disruptive. But who stands to benefit? Serious founders with real capital, operational experience, and projects aligned with Canada's long-term economic needs. What happens when a system no longer rewards patience alone, but preparedness? The playing field changes. Processing times shorten, Oversight strengthens and credibility returns. For Canada, this matters deeply. Entrepreneurial immigration only works if companies actually get built, jobs actually materialize, and regional capacity can absorb growth. Without that balance, even well-intentioned programs strain housing, infrastructure, and public services. By slowing intake now, Canada reduces downstream pressure later. This also protects communities that would otherwise bear the cost of mismatched growth. The pause forces a necessary question. Is it better to admit more applicants or to admit the right ones? Canada's answer is becoming clear. Precision matters more than volume. For people watching this unfold, the key takeaway is that this move is not about exclusion, but about alignment. When systems function properly, everyone involved benefits more predictably and more sustainably. Looking ahead, how is Europe likely to respond? Not with confrontation, but with adjustment. European founders are pragmatic. They understand regulatory cycles, policy recalibration, and the realities of administrative capacity. Rather than abandoning Canada, many will simply wait for clarity, restructure their timelines, or explore interim partnerships while the new framework takes shape. Some may ask a different question altogether. If Canada is refining its intake, should European startup strategies become more targeted as well? This moment could deepen cooperation rather than weaken it. Bilateral innovation programs, research partnerships, and sector-specific investment channels may gain prominence as temporary alternatives. European governments are unlikely to view this pause as a hostile act because it is not accompanied by political signaling, public criticism, or retaliatory measures. Instead, it resembles a technical reset that many European systems have undergone themselves in recent years. In fact, some countries may quietly take notes. How does Canada manage demand without destabilizing trust? How does it communicate restraint without undermining openness? These are shared challenges across advanced economies. When the new program launches, Europe will likely re-engage quickly, but with sharper expectations and clearer filters. The long-term relationship remains intact because it is built on structural cooperation, not administrative shortcuts. Canada's decision to pause a specific immigration stream reflects the realities of managing success in an increasingly competitive global environment. Demand has risen, expectations have shifted, and systems built for an earlier phase are being updated for what comes next. Europe's visibility in this story does not indicate distance or disagreement, but depth. European entrepreneurs have been so closely integrated into Canada's growth strategy that any adjustment naturally registers across the continent. The pause draws a clear line between openness and order, between ambition and execution. It reinforces the idea that cooperation works best when systems are credible, timelines are realistic, and outcomes are measurable. Canada is not stepping away from its partners. It is strengthening the foundation on which those partnerships operate. The reset underway is not a barrier, but a bridge being reinforced before heavier traffic arrives. Canada's pause has generated attention because it touches on mobility, opportunity, and partnership, but its deeper meaning lies in governance. Strong systems are not defined by constant expansion, but by the ability to adjust before imbalance sets in. Europe remains a central partner in Canada's economic future, and nothing in this decision alters that trajectory. What changes is the structure through which cooperation flows. As the new framework emerges, clarity will replace uncertainty, and intention will replace volume. In a world where pressure is rising everywhere, Canada's decision reflects restraint, foresight, and long-term thinking. And there you have it. If you found this breakdown valuable, watch our next video. It connects directly to what's unfolding. And don't forget to subscribe. Your support helps us decode these global shifts without compromise. This was why Canada quietly pressed pause on Europe. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.